marijuana legalization ballot measure does not have enough support to pass, according to a new poll. Majority of Florida voters say they support a marijuana legalization initiative that will appear on the November ballot, not enough to reach the steep 60% threshold for passage under the state constitution, according to a new poll. USA Today and Ipsos survey that was released on Saturday found that 56% of Florida registered voters and 49% of Florida adults overall backed the cannabis measure. There's been a mix of polling over the last year on marijuana legalization initiative, certain surveys signaling that there is enough support for approval. This is the first to come out since the Florida Supreme Court cleared the measure for the ballot after rejecting the state attorney general's constitutional challenge. Poll first reported by the Tallahassee Democrat found that support for the proposal is strongest among Democrats at 69%, followed by independents 63%, and of course the Republicans at 39%. Regional breakdown shows that Central Florida residents are more likely to back the measure than those in North or South Florida. Ipsos said it was also notable that, quote, Floridians in Broward County or Palm Beach County are more likely than those in Miami-Dade County to say they would vote in favor of legalizing recreational cannabis. Polling firm also said there were no differences in self-reported plans to vote for recreational cannabis legalization by gender or age, but that white Floridians are more likely than Hispanic Floridians to say they would vote in favor of recreational marijuana legalization this November. The survey also found that 54% of respondents are very or somewhat familiar with the state Supreme Court's decision to allow the cannabis measure to appear on the ballot in November. Findings underscore the challenges and opportunities for the Smart and Safe Florida campaign in the months ahead as they enter into the next phase of outreach and education. Multiple marijuana companies are working to support that effort, donating a total of nearly $15 million to the campaign, including several multi-state operators, according to state filings that were released last week. TrueLeave, the main financial backer of the initiative, led the pack again with $9.225 million in donations during the first quarter of this year, bringing their total contributions to over $49 million. Rano, Cureleaf, Green Thumb, Air Wellness, and Cresco Labs have also donated money, as little as $400,000 and as much as $2.25 million. Florida voters approve a marijuana legalization initiative at the ballot that could actually improve the quality of life for residents. In contrast with the governor's recent comments to the contrary, CEO of TrueLeaf said last week, "The sky has not fallen with Florida's implementation of medical cannabis legalization under an early initiative, and folks see that choice is a good thing," and CEO of TrueLeaf, Kim Rivers, during an interview on the Dales Report Trade to Black podcast. Will Floridians ultimately pass the measure with at least 60% of the vote, as is required for constitutional amendments? Rivers says, hell yes. Comments about quality of life implications of cannabis legalization follow Florida Governor Ron DeSantis's prediction that voters will reject the marijuana initiative this November. He called the proposal radical and argued it will reduce the quality of life in the state. DeSantis, for his part, said earlier this month that enactment of the reform would mean, quote, this state will start to smell like marijuana in our cities and towns, unquote. It seems to be a particular concern for the governor, who has previously complained about the smell of cannabis in other jurisdictions. He also said it will reduce the quality of life. And he said, do we really want to do more with that? Do we want to have more marijuana in our communities? I don't think it'll work out well, but it is a very, very broad amendment. Rivers said that DeSantis has been consistent for a long time around his comments around the smell, not necessarily being excited about having marijuana everywhere. I think there's some additional education needs to happen there, and they've been working on it. As drafted, the measure, if approved, would change the state constitution to allow existing medical cannabis companies in the state, like TrueLeaf, to begin selling marijuana to adults over 21. It contains a provision that would allow, but not require, lawmakers to take steps toward the approval of additional businesses. Home cultivation by consumers would not be allowed under the proposal as it is currently drafted. Adults 21 and older would be able to purchase and possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis, only 5 grams of which could be marijuana concentrate products. The 3-page measure also omits equity provisions favored by advocates such as expungements or relief for people with prior cannabis convictions. Separately, economic analysis for the state of Florida legislature and the governor's office estimate that marijuana legalization initiative would generate between $195 and $431 million in new tax sales revenue if voters enact it. And those figures could increase considerably if lawmakers opted to impose an additional excise tax on cannabis transaction that is similar in places where other legalized states. Full text of the ballot and the summary says, quote, it allows adults 21 years or older to possess, purchase, or use marijuana products and marijuana accessories for non-medical personal consumption by smoking, ingestion, or otherwise. It allows medical marijuana treatment centers and other state licensed entities to acquire, cultivate, process, manufacture, sell, and distribute such products and accessories. Applies to Florida law, does not change or immunize violations of federal law. Establishes possession limits for personal use, allows consistent legislation, defines terms, provides effective date. Florida Chamber of Commerce released a poll in January showing that a marijuana legalization initiative that may appear on the November ballot enjoys majority support from likely voters, but not quite enough to meet the state's steep 60% threshold for passage. Meanwhile, there's significant interest in how Nation's boy, former President Donald Trump, a Florida resident, will vote on the cannabis initiative and whether he will publicly support it or oppose it. Legalization to restrict consumable hemp products and ban Delta-8 THC was approved by lawmakers and awaits DeSantis' action. Separately, a House subcommittee recently advanced a medical marijuana bill that would waive patient registration and renewal fees for service-disabled military veterans. Despite his opposition to the initiative, DeSantis and former GOP presidential candidate who dropped out of the race in January previously accurately predicted that the state's highest court would ultimately allow the measure on November's ballot. Attorney General Ashley Moody, also a Republican, successfully petitioned justices to prevent an earlier 2022 legalization initiative from receiving voter consideration. DeSantis also weighed in on another relevant cannabis policy issue earlier this year. While still a presidential candidate, he said he doesn't believe the federal gun ban for state legal marijuana consumers is constitutional. Florida's former Agricultural Commission, Nikki Fried, brought a lawsuit against the Biden administration over the rule, though the governor did not get involved. Prior to dropping out, DeSantis also said that if elected president, he would respect the decisions that states make on marijuana legalization, despite his personal view that the reform has a, quote, negative impact. I'm Todd Dankin with High at 9 News, and do we think that the initiative will pass the 60% majority in Florida? What say you guys?
I got a lot to say about this. I just got to jump in. I got like commentary ants in my pants. The first is, number one, the 60% threshold is a challenge because it is not a majority. It is a super majority. It is not a 51%, and they were already at 49%. And so having that be the requirement, I think flies in the face of sort of the foundational principles of just a representative democracy. Number two, I want to point out to you, Jason, that Republicans are only supporting this by 37%, while Democrats are supporting it by 69%. It's okay. Don't say anything. Just let that sink in for a second, because I thought you guys were the party of freedom and choice, but we can go there later. Number three, they are not allowing home grows. So this is a problem. This, if anything, any legalization that does not include the opportunity for someone to do home grows, to me, misses the mark by a massive amount. Number four.
Hi, Dr. Shanda. Saman Razani, such a pleasure to meet you.
Saman.
Hey, you mute up, buddy. I got things to say. Number four, DeSantis said that this was a radical plan. DeSantis is so out of touch that even his platform cowboy boots can't reach the reality of what the American public actually thinks and feels. When 35 states have programs and you are still worried about the smell. DeSantis, the problem you have is cocaine doesn't have an odor, but that doesn't mean it's not an issue. I mean, let's get real here for a second. When he's not railing against Disney, he's fighting these false issues And it's just out of touch with the American public. And it's too bad that he's still governing.
Really is.
Okay, I'm gonna go real quick here.
boots.
I'm gonna go real quick here. If it does not reach the ballot initiative, if it doesn't have the support that it needs, this is going to be $41 million, very poorly spent by Truly.
Yeah,
that part,
Very
yeah,
poorly.
I mean, if history is any tale, then I'm going to say that it is not going to pass, because even their medical bill, it took 2 times before it would pass, and this is the first time that they're actually going to be voting on adult use there in Florida. So if history is a tale of anything, then I would say that it would fail as well. Maybe like 53% something, but it's not going to hit that 60% threshold.
I think it's going to pass. I think the voters want it. The public wants it, and it's just that the governor doesn't. I think it's going to pass.
I mean, I don't think anyone really cares what the government,
Jason,
the governor wants.
Maybe you take a trip down and meet your boy at Mar-a-Lago and tell him to come out for it, and maybe that would.
Hey, I'll tell you what, that'll push it over the top. That would push it over the top.
That's probably one thing. Trump doesn't have any of his own ideas, and he's not going to comment on it until he has like a super majority in these polls, and he's like, oh, this is my belief now because all these people said that is the thing to say.
Maybe we should do an educational event for voters over at the Breakers, and like that would be a big push right there.
I think we might need to do an educational event for Trump, because he could take a public stance on this, and not only would it distract against his numerous lawsuits and criminal proceedings, but it would also allow voters to understand what he truly thinks and believes on this issue.
What is it?
Jason, maybe you can.
What is the educational event for Trump? Is that just like you showing him a picture book with Sharpies in it?
Stop it! No, we have real conversations. We have real in-depth
maybe Jason,
conversations.
you can go visit him in court in New York and keep him awake and talk about cannabis.
I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame that these
go to a trap shop. There's plenty of them out there. Just hit a trap shop and get all the education he needs.
And with a good energizing sativa, he'll be able to stay awake.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Fair enough. Well. I mean, I like I said, I think it's. I'm not sure if it's going to pass, and judging by this poll results, it doesn't sound like it's going to pass. But at the same time, it's not November yet either, and so we do have a lot in the campaign trail still to change people's votes and change people's hearts and minds when it comes to this issue. So on that, we're going to go to a commercial, and we are going to be right back.